So it's been reported that the Illinois dispensary licenses might not be handed out until 2021. I figured that made for a wonderful opportunity for me to come on and give my editorial reply on another exciting episode of... Welcome, everybody. Evidently, Grown In is reporting that the litigation is slowing down the disbursement of the cannabis licenses. And so I have now drafted an article to LinkedIn, and it's called What States Can Learn from Illinois' Failed Cannabis License Launch. We're going to go over that now. The crux of what's being reported on Grown In is that the court cases that are going on, and we can get into them, but I really don't want to. The point of them is that they can take a long time, but they are still continuing. And it appears that the audit, well, that's not an audit, a rescore is supposed to happen. That will take months. Now, how long can litigation take? A long time. You'll find out the longest piece of litigation I have ever been involved of or have knowledge of if you give us a like, a subscribe, and tune in all the way until the end. So why don't I go ahead and give my little statement. My editorial reply is what I wrote it in here. It's an Inside Simpsons joke. And then we'll discuss some of the amendments that may be coming down the pipe as well. We have the amendments that we can go over here. But first, I wanted you to think about the litigation surrounding Illinois' first cohort of 75 dispensary license should be a warning for any state that has cannabis legalization plans or election results to deal with. The 5 new legal states do not have to turn into a logjam of litigation that stalls the industry's growth and expansion into new markets. Illinois does not have to continue on this path of guaranteed litigation that hurts newcomers to the industry and bleeds them slowly while they die on the vine, waiting for any resolution on their license application. Instead, Illinois can learn from states like Michigan and Arizona, and so the other states can, the other states with licenses to hand out in the near future. In Michigan, there is no state limit on licenses, and the municipalities can control how many licenses they want in their own communities. This is popular in other states. I'm just using Michigan as an example, but I digress. Companies can get open for business, but they have to compete like any other business. For legal cannabis, and they have to compete like in any other business, except for the legal cannabis in limited market states. Limited market states create cannabis oligarchs because the state picks the winners and losers in the application round. This guarantees a profitable business and with it, the corruption to become one of those winners. Political connections, lobbying, outright bribes, the whole schmear of bad acts that outright greed can make a person do is found in the limited jurisdiction states. Now, if a state does want to limit their licenses, which I do not recommend, by the way, but also avoid the litigation risk, then it needs to set standards for its cannabis industry and throw all the applications that qualify pursuant to those standards to a randomly drawn lottery. Illinois dispensary licenses failed to do this. They were to be fully scored, which turned out to be a cruel and opaque joke. The process went so badly that the state settled with scores of disgruntled applicants and agreed to settled with scores of disgruntled applicants that became plaintiffs and agreed to rescore all of the applications. After the application window had opened for Illinois dispensary applications, the state updated its own rules to include a lottery because it realized that it had far more applications than available licenses. Arizona did not make this mistake because its Prop 207 that legalized marijuana in the state included language for its lottery of applicants that qualified under its state standard. On the other hand, it also only created 26 new additional licenses for a state with only 126 operators and a population of 7.3 million. Still a very limited market state. The point is to create rules and standards to regulate the new cannabis industry, and if more businesses qualify than available licenses, use a lottery system to ensure a fair distribution of those licenses. Or the state should quit trying to pick winners and losers and creating an oligopoly in America. Set the rules, ensure the players comply with the regulations, and let the market sort it out. Now, we can see from the proposed amendments that we're going to be going over here in a second that the state is still working through these growing pains. License caps may help prevent wealthy teams from grabbing the max allotment and making hegemony in the emerging market as opposed to consolidation over time for mergers and acquisitions. Also, separating out specific numbers of licenses for veterans as opposed to having them take all the licenses could help ensure that veteran-owned businesses reflect the population for which it serves. Ironically enough, in Illinois, it's only about 7% of the population is a veteran. Whatever the way forward, I hope that it's not in court. The market needs to open quickly so that the barriers of entry are lowered so that to that of any highly regulated business. Having startup capital to burn money for years while the lawsuits work their way out in court is not something that social equity applicants can afford. Okay, well, thank you for joining us until the end of that spiel, which I'm now going to hit go on LinkedIn. And of course, while I was reading it, I did catch a few errors in it, but I'm still going to publish it as is because, it's 2020, man. It's 2020. And publish. So do follow me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to follow me. And then now I'll tell you, for the record, the longest litigation that I've ever seen is 9 years. Now, granted, I quit checking on this litigation several years ago. It could be over a decade by now. Now, your state should get the jobs and tax dollars a lot faster than 9 years or a decade after your people or legislature voted on legalizing the cannabis plant. And I really hope you do. So remember, set a standard. If you comply with that standard, great. If you want to set licenses and you have a cap and there's more qualified applicants than available licenses, put them in a pot, draw numbers. Of course, then you're going to have some litigation about people saying, "But I should have been in there too." So make sure that you have an administrative appeals process for that. You might want to stagger out how quickly between the announcement of an award and the conducting of a license. It might have to be a 6-month window. But let's talk about the proposed regulations that may be coming down. Now, again, sometimes when I say regulations, I should actually be saying statutory amendments. Statutory amendments are different than regulations because regulations are written, of course, by the administrative branch. Hey, administrative branch, how you doing? If you enjoy this type of stuff, do give us the likes and the thumbs up because, who else is out there teaching you public policy about cannabis? Seriously, I would love to have them on the show. But some of these restrictions are, what about a related group? Some proposed amendments are to include more points for having, actually this related group was to create a license cap. So how do you stop somebody from trying to take all the licenses? Well, that's why they have this new definition of a related group, so that people can't kind of like partner with one another to try to like go over their license caps. It'll happen. And then they want another 50 points added for a community plan. So things that benefit the community. I don't know if that'll get added. And then, of course, timing periods. There could be timing periods between when these things are due and the appropriate appeals process prior to conducting the lottery so that your score can be fairly adjudicated. Again, when you make it more standardized and less nuanced, then it's just easier. Like in Michigan, you can just get open for business. In Illinois, because it's, hey, look what I got. It's very exclusive. They don't give this to anybody. You get over that, man. The market themselves will sort them out because it's just a difficult industry to be in. This is one of the interesting amendments that I hope happens in the next round. They are going to redefine the problem with the 5 inches of the cannabis plant for home grow. That's just silly. The 5 inches, it should be mature plants, and then defining mature plant as a flowering plant. And then also this one's going to try to go for full home grow, which will be interesting. I mean, I sit on the cannabis law board for our section council for the ISBA, and we're going to go over the proposed amendments and discuss them in our committee and see whether or not we approve of them or not. So I'm really excited to see all the amendments that come down through Illinois. I mean, they really are trying. And bless their hearts. And then they're going to do a great job. It's just that when you have an industry that's growing this fast, that attracts this much greed, trying to figure out a way to do it like fairly is actually quite difficult. But at least they're trying, and so are your states. I'm looking at you, Mississippi, South Dakota, Arizona, New Jersey. Where else? Pop? Montana. And if you have not, we did little pieces on each one of those, and we're going to have a lot more in New Jersey because that legislation appears that it's going to start getting delivered here soon. So yeah. Thanks, guys, for sticking around. And now I kind of like to wrap these up because this is going to be going somewhere. And if you haven't checked it out, you should go to cannabislegalizationnews.com. So now we're going to start putting this type of stuff on cannabislegalizationnews.com. This is the video that will go in there. It's like watching the future. Hopefully you guys are all having great weeks. It is a Friday, right? 2,500 gets you in business in Oklahoma. Well, come on. I don't know how low the regulations are there. However, I do need to give all those people from Oklahoma a call back, including that wonderful law firm that I'm going to be working with. And until that time, I know what time it will be. It will always be this time. That time again.